Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Lynda Samphire, and she's right in our backyard, right across the water from me. So I'm looking forward to our conversation with this fellow North Pacific Northwesterner. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with Lynda Samphire is a highly intuitive transformational guide and frequency alchemist, inviting others to explore the creative intelligence and wisdom that awaken through embodiment and wholeness. Lynda blends her strong intuitive insights and deep spiritual wisdom with structured expertise and practical tools to facilitate and support transformational growth and deep remembrance. Microdosing for stress and creativity, guided dream and sleep work, breath work and embodiment practice, light language, and a variety of trauma informed, spiritually aligned techniques are central ingredients to the alchemy she facilitates. She provides these intentional pathways for transformation in one to one and group settings, immersive retreats, and through online courses. Lynda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Liz. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to our conversation because, as I was telling you before we started, I was intuitively guided to start microdosing again about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And I started the Stamets protocol this last Saturday because I happened to have the weekend off. So it fit. And I like how congruent my life is because I think I remember, as I was telling you before we started, that I was drawn to the other healing work that you were doing around dream work, sleep work, and light language, but the congruency, you can't deny it. I think intuitively, like we were led here to be with each other during this time and totally in your energy already, and really excited to learn more about microdosing. So, I also want
Yes.
the audience to get to know you a little bit. And I always like to start with the question, what was it that brought you to doing the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, thank you, Liz. And yes, how serendipitous that you start microdosing and then here we are. I love it. So my work, I teach consciousness and what it means to be human, and that was really because that was my own search through my life. My mother passed when I was 2 years old, which led me to kind of the inside unresolved and unprocessing of grief that I was unaware of, and really moved me to a lot of behaviors and choices I was making, and life seemed really struggly, and a need to kind of prove the self. So my work was always intrigued by consciousness, why we're here, what we're doing. And that led me down all the rabbit holes of what it means to be human. And that led me to all my modalities and ones I wasn't even aware of or was looking for, like light language that came forward. And here I am today, really reconnecting with my inner self and remembering who I am. And that's what I help people do on their own.
That's awesome. What a beautiful journey. Thank you for sharing that. I'm interested.
Yeah.
How did light language come to you? Was that part of diving into your inner self?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I don't know what happened. I had started working with medicines, and that begins opening us up to our gifts, our intuition. And I was in my kitchen and I sneezed 3 times, and then light language came out.
Wow.
I was like, what is this? And I was able to record it and then send it to my mentor. And she says, yes, that's light language you're speaking now. And so over time, it's matured and integrated through me. And yes, so that's how it came forward. So to answer your question, the whole discovery and inner journey on myself is what brought it forward.
Nice. And I also heard that that
Yeah.
was through plant medicines. So, what led you to do plant medicines yourself?
I've been in the healing arts for over 20 years, and I was still at that part where something was missing. something still, it was like a dial that needed to just click for me. And I'd always been intrigued with plant medicine and psychedelics. And then all of a sudden the door started opening. It was very important for me to have like a safe container, a safe person that I was with. And that opened up the door for plant medicine to come in. And that was my click. That was my dial that happened. And though it's been a process of over the last 6 years, it wasn't just an overnight coming into myself. And it always is, right? We're always evolving and learning. But it felt like that part that was missing for me.
Hmm. Interesting. What were the benefits that came to you from doing plant medicine? And what were your plant
Well,
medicines of choice?
yeah, so I'm one of those hard nuts to crack. So, the benefits of it, well, I started with microdosing psilocybin, and it it opened things up like intuition, those parts that had kept reaching for, rather than reaching for the awareness came forward, and so it was like an opening for divine to begin moving through me. And I was doing very small doses. And then I was led from there into the large medicine, 5-MeO, and I worked with that for a while. And then I moved into Amanita Muscaria. All of them really repatterning the nervous system, working with those neural pathways of the brain, and really going in and working with those deep beliefs and that deep conditioning that was there, but I was unaware of. And from there, I always had worked with dreams. I paired that with my dream work and integrating it through avenues. So my work really it wasn't about the mushrooms and the dreams and those altered states. That wasn't what's doing. It was just the doorways to where the real work within was opened up for me to explore.
Nice. What would you say the differences were in the three modalities that you chose or medicines that you chose?
Um, yeah, so I'll back up with Amanita Muscaria, where she works with that central nervous system, which is different than psychedelics that regular, that kind of the mainstream psychedelics that work with our serotonin, 5-HT2 receptors. So Amanita works with our GABA receptors. And so really restores the system, soothes the central nervous system. So I look at her as kind of tilling the soil before the larger ones come in and begin aerating. So psilocybin likes to knock on our emotional doors, say, hi, are you ready to explore this? Um, where we might look at feeling, we might feel sad. We might feel anger. All those emotions that we've been putting down come to the surface so that we begin feeling more human and can become more human. And 5-MeO is not who am I, it's here I am and the remembering of on a grander, more powerful scale. That one is not one I start people with. It's very powerful and can go into really breaking down our identities a little bit. So we want to be really grounded and have our tools in place for that. So the ones I work mostly with are Amanita and psilocybin, where we can begin looking at the limiting beliefs that are stopping us from moving forward, where we simply have become disconnected from our own wisdom and waking that up. However, we need our nervous system to be able to receive that. And that's where my protocol is Amanita for 30 days and then moving into the psilocybin and following a protocol similar to what you're doing now.
Interesting. So I know a lot about
Yeah.
psilocybin and psilocybin microdosing, and I know there's a lot of conversation around that out there. So I really wanted to get
Yeah.
into the Amanita muscaria because it grows everywhere here in the Pacific Northwest. Everybody sees it. We're told that it's poisonous. So tell us about Amanita and what the benefits are.
Yeah. So the iconic mushroom, right? The red and white. Um, and So Amanita works again, like I said, with our GABA receptors. So GABA is the off switch to the brain, and glutamate is the on switch. In Especially right now, we're all walking around, most of us, with that glutamate pedal down, and our GABA is overexhausted. So our system is not restoring itself. It's not soothing itself, coming down, and working and balanced. And we need that balance to just feel whole. So we're not sleeping, our energy's frenetic, our nervous systems are revved up, we've got anxiety, and it's that continued stress. Amanita is the muscimol, is what we want inside, which is within the amanita, and that is agonist to GABA. The brain doesn't know the difference. It grabs onto it, moves down the central nervous system, and our system soothes. So we're going from sympathetic to parasympathetic.
Wow.
The one thing we have to be aware of, though, is Amanita. One, beautiful mycorrhizal relationship with the trees. It's the one mushroom that we cannot synthesize, we cannot grow on our own. She needs the birch tree, the fir, the spruce to grow. And eating her right out of nature. So I don't want to say she's poisonous and can kill us because that's false. There's 600 different species of Amanita. There's the death cap that is brown, and that can happen. So with Amanita, we go through a particular process. And this is the important part when we're using and working with Amanita. How is it processed? Where is it sourced? Is it free of heavy metals? Has it been tested? And it's going through a decarb process, which is heating it to a certain degree. And if we look at the mushroom's components of the ibotenic acid and the muscimol, ibotenic acid can make our stomachs feel not so great. And that would be if we're eating it right out of nature. So we can become sick and ill. The When we heat it to a particular degree, the ibotenic acid turns into muscimol. So what I use is fully decarbed amanita, and that's what that's called. So it's being dehydrated and prepared to a certain degree, and all we want is the muscimol from it. And then it's safe for microdosing. It's safe in our bodies. We're not getting ill or sick. So there's a lot of misconception about that mushroom, but it is, and really, there's a lot of things we don't want to eat out of nature,
Yeah.
straight out without some type of preparation.
So tell us a little bit more about Amanita Muscaria, its folklore, and what it's most known for.
Yeah, the Christmas mushroom, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Amanita has beautiful history and folklore. So, Christmas time, we always see Amanita very prevalent and little Christmas decorations. She comes out very much in our faces at that moment. She is linked to Christmas and Santa Claus. So, if we look at some of the folklore tales where the shamans would dress in red and white to match the mushrooms, and they would go out and forage in the forest under the trees as gifts that were planted there, similar to like the Christmas tree and presents. They would then bring the mushrooms home, and because the snow was so like we're talking about areas of like Siberia where the snow was so prevalent at that time, they would develop these roofs where the chimney, and they would come down that area to bring in the mushrooms because they couldn't get in through the front doors. We're looking at Santa Claus coming down the chimney. Then they would dry them over the fireplace in stockings, and they would hang there and dry for several days till they reach their perfect dehydrated state. And so we can look at stockings hung by the fireplace. We also, the reindeers can eat amanita right out of nature, and they begin dancing and prancing all around. Some of the shamans, when they would take the mushrooms themselves to reach altered states, they would say the reindeers were flying. And so you can see where this story is really prevalent to our beliefs around Christmas and today.
I love that. And I remember seeing it on Instagram and then researching it further after that a couple of years ago. And I'm like, what? this is where it all comes from. It's funny where, all of the things that we do these days that have become rituals in our lives throughout the years, come from these, around folklore or different things that we used to do, or Coca-Cola, because that plays a role in Christmas too, let's face it. But, it's interesting how, that story was lost, as corporate America starts up here in Western society. Interesting. Thanks for sharing that because I think that's a really fun story. So,
Yeah,
so if people
yeah. And
go ahead.
no, it's fine. I was just going to say I have an actual ebook that I wrote, and it has all that information about the folklore and everything in it.
Oh, nice. Can that be found on your website, Linda?
Yeah, it's a free download. You just go on there and it pops up free.
Fun. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So you're working with
Yeah,
clients
yeah.
and they come to you. What is it that you're working with your clients where you're initiating this microdosing protocol?
Well, one, nervous system repatterning, and I really like to work with remembering who we are underneath all the conditioning and bringing forward our wisdom, our power, our creativity, whether it's in leadership, art, we, and moving into becoming that co-creator that we're meant to be in whatever
Mm-hmm.
that looks like. So, yeah. And we determine which medicine is aligned most with them based on kind of where they're at, what's going on in their life. Do we need some restoration first with the Amanita? And most do. Um, and just right there ignites our own creativity. So we start becoming the co-creator that we're meant to be. And then our intuition becomes clearer and we begin feeling more balanced. And at that point, people begin to trust in themselves again. So it's really about trusting within, our creativity returning. And then from there, we move into the psilocybin. So we start working with those neural pathways, the belief systems that are possibly standing in our way from achieving our wholeness.
Nice. You mentioned nervous system and you had a journey yourself around stress and anxiety. Would you mind discussing that with us?
On my own journey, yes, with stress and anxiety. So I was really functioning through life with that low vibrating functional anxiety, I like to call it. And I just thought it was normal. Like I just figured that's just how we always felt. It wasn't until I started working with medicine that I realized that my nervous system was just overexhausted, always on that hypervigilant fight or flight system. And when I started working with the medicines, I started really noticing it. It became very apparent. And the woman I was working with, she says, said like, I have this feeling in my upper stomach and in my heart. And she's like, well, what does it feel like? I said, it feels like anxiety. And she says, how long has it been there? I was like, forever. And I really think it goes back to when the passing of my mother, and really just not feeling safe in the world. Um, and so when I started microdosing, that's what brought that forward. And the awareness is our healing, right? That's what brings things into play. And when we're aware of it, then we have choices. And so it was the awareness that brought that forward. It's like, oh, I'm actually experiencing that. And from there, what direction I needed to work towards and balancing that and the grief, right? The unresolved grief that was inside of losing a mother. Um, had been unprocessed.
Hmm. Wow. My first experience with microdosing psilocybin was after my own mother's death 4 years ago. And I had this anxiety, and I didn't know where this anxiety was coming from. And I hadn't really struggled with
Mm.
anxiety since my late 20s. And anxiety and panic attacks are, as I've said before, in other um, interviews, what led me to doing the energy work, that I practice today.
Mm.
And I was like, what is going on? And I had heard about someone on the island who had started talking about it, had done many interviews and listened to him, and then contacted him. And it only took one dose of microdose. So I took it that morning, and by the evening time, I knew what was causing the anxiety. It was amazing. And it's funny thing, I haven't really used it since until I got the intuition again about three weeks ago. But it's really powerful and can really like
Yeah.
point out quite clearly what's going on.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that because I love hearing stories like that because really, again, it was just the awareness that you needed. And then from there, the system was being heard and was able to receive, and the medicines begin doing their work. I like to think of mushrooms as that mycelial network, and that's what it's doing inside of our body as well, bringing our systems online, balancing, and however, being really careful to not look at it like it's an overnight fix. So, like, not everybody has these for you, real quick responses. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer. And the integration and integrating what's coming forward, like, why am I feeling tired all of a sudden? And we notice that a lot. And that could be because the body's overexhausted and it's saying, please, I need to rest. Why am I feeling angry? Because all that stuff that was beneath the surface is coming to the surface because we know in order to heal, we feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that we begin microdosing and we just feel great. It can go through. My experience in the beginning was very profound. A lot of spiritual stuff came through. However, the second month, I was like, well, what's this? Why am I feeling kind of depressed, kind of sad, really tired? Because that was the road I was getting ready to go on and move through. Um, as I worked with these medicines that needed to, I think my whole intention was just to align with my most powerful self. And
Mm-hmm.
it was going to show me what was standing in the way and what was ready to be expanded and made space for.
Nice. And I like that you just spoke to intention, because I think it's really good to
Yeah.
be intentional when we're doing these, because it is going to release certain things from our nervous system, from our little t big T traumas, and let us, know what's going on. So you spoke to your experiences, it wasn't just that awareness that came through. You were tired. You mentioned a couple other things. What did you do to work with what was brought up?
Well, I worked in a container with someone that held space for me to explore myself. It wasn't like she was there to fix it or tell me what to do. It was a safe container where, first of all, we're going to normalize. All this was normalized for me, and I was able to explore myself. And that alone was, we all love to be heard. So within, right? And so these parts of me were being heard, they were able to speak, I was able to become aware, and it was kind of like, oh, this makes so much sense. And eventually started moving through it and kind of putting a light on it
Mm-hmm.
where it was okay to be sad. It was okay to be angry. It was okay to be all of these things and be human. The side effect of that was my intuition I've always been highly intuitive, and my channeling just opened up, and then light language came in. And so the side effect was these gifts that were showing up, and my work, and really shifting how I worked with people. So I first though had to integrate what the medicine was showing me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, the integration is really important. I've been doing a little integration
Yeah.
myself because for me, what ended up coming up were and it was more towards the evening on the second and third day was racing
Oh,
thoughts, a little bit of anxiousness, not being able to go to sleep, and then really working with that, so day 4 and day 5. And it's been really fascinating to see where okay, it's showing me where I have not been working with my nervous system, where I may not have been paying attention to the things that were coming up for me in real time, and where I really needed to do my work. I like also that you brought up it opens up more than just awareness to what's going on. It also brings up our intuitive awareness. And I was listening to a couple of your interviews and also heard it can help with sleep and dream time. Can you share a little bit more about that?
yeah. Yes, I've always been a very vivid dreamer. I used to have dreams of my mother after she passed. And I feel like dreams are one of the most overlooked spiritual technologies available to us within that are innate to us. And these medicines begin opening that up for us. Because again, we're coming back to our wholeness, who we are at our core, and dreams are part of that. So Amanita, I work with for sleep hygiene, and I do a lot of work in the dream world with Amanita because she promotes that soothing of the central nervous system. And then we're having more REM sleep. And if we're having more REM, our dreams are coming back online. And so I run several group courses where we'll microdose Amanita and we'll work in the dreams, learning how to work with those and actually integrating what the medicines are bringing up through our dream work. I was always like, well, let's just do this while we sleep. And so it was very much like a fish to water for me to work with people in their dreams and bring that into the awareness. We used to, we used to centuries ago, Native Americans, different cultures, Egypt, um, Africa, always working with our dream world to get answers to Native Americans, where which way do we travel? When do we plant? It all came from the dream weaver in the tribe. I studied with the African Sangoma one summer, and he taught me that in certain tribes in Africa, if you're not remembering your dreams, you're sick. So you're brought in to that with elders. They watch you, they help you begin remembering your dreams again, bringing them back, and then they send you out into the village. They then watch you because if you're sick, then the whole village is sick. So the importance of bringing that back online.
Wow, that's incredible. And you hear a lot of people, these days, I don't remember my dreams for maybe they're using cannabis, and I know cannabis can suppress the dreams, or they're not getting enough sleep. And I know when I don't get enough sleep, I can't remember my dreams. And I think that sleep is very important and very healing. And I know personally myself do a lot of healing work in my sleep. Sleep, ever since I was a child, has been really important to me. Yeah, and that's really interesting that Amanita
Yeah.
Muscaria can is helpful with sleep and dream time. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of the reason we're not sleeping is because that nervous system, that glutamate pedals down, and she just soothes. And so working in different ways where we fall asleep faster. If for me, when I first started microdosing, I'm one of those ones that would wake up and then have a hard time falling back to sleep. I would fall right back to sleep. And then she's not sedating you, so you're not waking up all groggy. The dream world can be pretty profound because we're hitting in those REM. We hear it a lot of times with when people who drink a lot of alcohol at night, that suppresses our dreams too. When they stop, all of a sudden their dreams are coming back online because that REM is coming back online as well. So I love her for that aspect of it. I am now to the point where I cannot take her at night because it's too overstimulating, too much in the liminal space. So she's very, she works well with telling you when enough is enough and when to use her and how to use her. So there's certain times of the day that work for certain types of people. I now cannot take her past 1 o'clock, but some people might take her at 10 and then be exhausted by 3. So that's when we know we want to move it back towards nighttime, and that's where she wants to work at.
Interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about the process? Because it sounds like it's different for everyone. And what is the process of like determining how to use it and when to use it?
So with Amanita, and it really is now how I start all my clients, I start them on Amanita. And I have programs where that's all we do, and I have programs where then we incorporate and integrate psilocybin. So, first of all, we want to establish is it the daytime that you're very frenetic and we need to start there? Or is it, I'm just having problems sleeping? I want deeper sleep. And then we determine whether to start during the day or at night. From there, we try for a couple days. And if it's going great, we keep doing it. Or we might adjust the times a little bit. Like I said, let's say someone microdoses at 10, but they're exhausted by 3. We'd want to move it back a little bit later. Um, if we use it at nighttime and it's creating a little bit more freneticness because the nervous system isn't feeling safe enough to let go, then we would move it back a little bit more in the daytime. So
Hmm.
it's kind of there's no right or wrong or specific, oh, yes, you're this, so you use this. Very individual, and one becomes trusting enough in her that she's like, I think I need to move this. Or maybe we need to go to half a dose too. So,
Mhm. What is dosing with Amanita?
yeah, that's the interesting part because we look at psilocybin, we're looking at, 0.5 milligrams to 100 milligrams, where Amanita, you're more like 300 milligram or 300 grams. So if we took 3 grams of psilocybin, we'd be having a big experience, but 3 grams, or I'm saying that wrong, 300 milligrams of Amanita is okay. So,
Wow, fascinating. It's interesting how they're all so
yeah,
different.
they are really different. And I mean, I have people who microdose up to 1 gram a day on Amanita and are fine. So big difference than with psilocybin. So we
Mhm.
don't want to compare it to, well, I'm dosing this with psilocybin, so I should be dosing this with Amanita.
Interesting. And for those out there who aren't familiar with what a microdose and a regular dose would be, if we want to have an experience, can you share, with our audience what that is?
For psilocybin would be, well, myself, I can do 0.5 gram, so we want to see how sensitive you are. But if we kind of look, the standard is one gram is that museum concert dose, like 0.5 gram to 1 gram, where we might take um, a dose and look at art, or we might go to a concert. When we get into the 2 and 3 grams, we're looking at a medium dose. And if we're holding journey space, I normally start all my people at around there. And then when we're looking at 4 grams and up, we're looking at more of a hero's dose, a little bit more stronger. So, um, again, our sensitivity level determines, are we on SSRIs, any pharmaceuticals that might blunt it a little bit, so there'll be a little bit more. So again, it's not a one size fits all. And that's really the importance of, I think, working with a facilitator and to get the right dose, and being determined, like, what's going on in your life? Is it super stressful? Well, then we don't want to give you a big, huge dose because that's just going to kind of amplify that for you. It might be something smaller and bringing in. Do we have a lot of trauma in our background? And what are we ready to receive? What's our body capable of holding as we catch up to it?
Nice. How can we further explore? Because these do open doors for us. So we're looking at not only exploring ourselves, but other realms as well. So, how could we benefit from opening to or exploring these spaces for beyond healing and into spiritual gifts, consciousness, other realms and dimensions?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I know with my own experience, I had to explore myself first, and then those other realms began to open up a little bit more. I was already experiencing them in my dreams, which I look at as the original medicine journey. Um, but one of the things that comes up when we start going into other realms is the fear based around that. So that can there can be some resistance going into um, expanding consciousness beyond this realm. So I think, first of all, working with someone. Second, it's about bringing curiosity into these journeys, and being opened and very unattached to what's showing itself. I know that on the lower end of like a 2, 3 gram, we're not quite as visual. However, music, which mushrooms love, can really guide us through those different realms where we're almost we are the music, we're becoming the music. So your set and setting is going to create the exploration. And I think just knowing that if we're coming into fear, then that's what we're to be working towards. Kind of like where you weren't sleeping, you were anxious, and that was something you needed to look at. The fear
Mhm.
going into these other realms really needs to be looked at before it can be received and opened up. And once that happens, it becomes more of a curiosity and exploration, and knowing that we are the oneness of the universe. We are ground, we are powerful, and anything is possible.
Yes, 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 yes. So let's step
Mhm.
into that divine a little bit, that oneness, and stepping into that divine wisdom. How has working with this medicine opened that up for you?
Yeah, I it created the embodiment and the space in my body for divine wisdom to move through. Years ago, it was always thinking I needed to travel somewhere to get to it. Instead, it was about creating a safe home in my vessel for divine wisdom to move through and connect in that sense. Um, it brought forward and a lot of it was my work on myself. It brought forward this profound trust within. And I believe when we begin trusting, that's when the consciousness and the divine wisdom is showing up more. Um, we receive more validations that there's something larger out there, that we are this oneness. And I think at the end of it all, it really brought forward to me the gratitude of being human and why we're here. And I did not feel that way before. I was always trying to reach towards something. And so I've said it already, it's about being able to receive the deserving, the trusting, the worthiness, and moving through all of those so that divine wisdom can be heard as we listen.
I like how working with the plants and um, the mycelium, how do I even want to put this? I just like how when we're working with things from nature, it brings us back into that wholeness and back into that oneness and helps us to regain that connection that we may have lost or deepen the connection if we already had it, and it shows up differently for different people. And I think that that's one of the beautiful gifts that comes from plant medicine is that connection.
Yeah, I agree. And its wisdom is subtle, so it requires us to slow down and listen and be really, really present. So it teaches that presenceness. And the medicine really helps quiet that noise so we can hear ourselves again and sit in that space of nothingness, not looking for something, because in the nothingness is the calm and that inner voice that we are all connected to and is waiting to be heard.
Mm, yes, I agree. I can feel it now. It feels really nice.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, if someone out there
Yeah,
is going,
yeah.
is if someone out there is like, oh my gosh, this sounds really fascinating. Where can I access this? Who would I work with? What would be your advice to beginning this journey?
Well, I think looking for someone that has worked with the medicine, offers integration. It's not a I wouldn't just go purchase from anybody. I think we're really, really seeing where sourcing is huge. Just because of all the noise that's coming forward. This happened to this person, this happened to that person, and underneath it, there was fentanyl in it or something. So we would really want to be careful of our sourcing. With Amanita, we want to make sure that it's prepared properly. Um, for me, what I offer is I offer several different containers, and the medicine is included with that container. So maybe it's just a 30-day or a 3 month. It just depends how deep people want to go.
Hmm.
And really looking for the space to feel safe. That was what was so important for me. I needed to feel safe moving in and working with psychedelics. So that's what I've created, a safe place for people to come to receive the medicine that that we know is being served and held with integrity.
Going back to safety, something that you said, and it had a little fear charge to it, was sourcing. So, and I had not heard about any stories about, bad experiences with sourcing or fentanyl being involved or anything like that. So, can you share what you've heard around that so we can release, any fear that might be around that?
I think if you're sourcing from someone with integrity, you're not going to have to worry about that. I think it's just, buying off the streets, buying off, um, Joe Blow on the corner at the convenience store. I've seen Amanita actually advertised and sold. And really looking for that space of knowledge and getting to know who is working and selling the medicines. Um, we also want to make sure that we're not buying year-old mushrooms that have been sitting around for a while too. Are they fresh? And so asking those questions, where do you source? Where does your mushrooms come from? And really asking the questions that are important, that you want to know. And it's not that someone will give up their source, however, they can give you an explanation of um, them and who they are. And I also, one of the things we really learned through time, and as the mushrooms move forward and psychedelics come in more into the mainstream, is we see a difference with people who do integration and people who don't. So people will be like, well, I tried and it didn't work. Did you have a container? Did you do, even if it's a simple one, did you have support? No. And then the ones that do are talking about it changed this, it did this for me. Um, because we're creating intention, we're creating the container, because this is about exploring the self and it's opening the doorway. So we really have seen a difference in that too. And
Hmm. I've
normally
seen.
when you're working with someone integration wise, they'll have the like me, the medicine's included. So it's coming from my source, and I've been sourcing from the same person for 6 years. Somebody else, it's if they're offering that with the container, or they'll tell you where to go and get it. And we have safe sourcing.
Nice. What does it look
Yeah.
like for someone who joins one of your, say, 30-day circles? What does that entail? What does it look like?
Yeah.
And what are some benefits, that you've seen or success stories that you've seen in your groups?
So Yeah, the 30-day is just kind of I'm interested, I really want to try. We do a one-on-one onboarding, Zoom over Zoom. We determine the medicine. A lot of times I'll jump on a quick consult call prior to this, if they're interested in just kind of chatting with me. And we'll determine which program. But they go into the 30-day, you get the one-on-one, we're onboarding, we're going through protocol, what medicine's best for them, how to get started, what to look for, and any of their questions. Then there'll be a check-in kind of via either email or through Signal VMs in between. I'm here for questions if we need to shift dose. And then at the end of the 30 days, we do an offboarding. Like what did we go through? What happened? What did you experience? Do we need to make shifts? Are you ready to continue, or do you want to go on to a deeper program? Is it time to move into psilocybin if you're on Amanita? So it's just about having that support and that container to feel safe while that somebody's there. My 3-month one, that's more full integration where we really want to work with some of those beliefs and those limits that come up and those behaviors that we're ready to change as we step into ourselves, working with our intuition to increase it, to access it, and trusting.
Nice. Trust. And I think
Yeah,
trust is huge
yeah,
in something like this.
so huge. Yeah, it really is. I did not trust myself prior going into it. And that was one of the profound things that came through. And I feel like when we're wanting to harness our intuition, that's fully not going to happen until we trust ourselves and can surrender into that.
Hmm. 100%. I had my own journey around the trust that I talk about in my latest book that I released. It's so important,
Mm.
and there really is a process if you don't trust yourself and your intuition to get to that space where you fully do.
Most definitely. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. It's interesting, isn't it? How we move through life and we learn not to trust ourselves. And so the medicines come in, really help with the deconditioning of all of that, moving out of the conditioned state. One of the things I have noticed, though, that those conditionings are like pillars, like they serve as a protection, they serve as something we need. In order to feel safe at times. And so our identity is linked to that. So to move that too quickly can be really destabilizing. And that's why I love the microdosing first before these larger peak experiences so that we can first trust in ourselves, trust in the medicine, develop a relationship with self, and then we really have those profound shifts. So I really look at less as more when we're working with the medicines rather than our society is all about more and more and more. Um, and so we can really do some powerful movement and aligning when we approach it.
Nice. I appreciate that. What
Yeah.
is something that you would want our audience to know, our listeners to know, that has not been discussed yet?
I think like when we go into plant medicine, there can be a fear. Sometimes even just working with our dreams first can put us on that road. So if there's a fear that um, not quite ready for medicine, then moving into dream work first and then going into that. I think that looking at, we're not fixing anything here. We're just remembering. And so, what if it's simply the whole process with these medicines have come forward at this time, remembering our humanity, remembering our intuition, remembering who we are at our core, at our wisdom, at our wisest, and we stop outsourcing all of our all of our stuff and we start going inward, and that's really where that empowerment lies. So perhaps consciousness isn't about becoming more, it's about really just learning to be human and live as we've always been meant to.
That's beautiful, Linda. Thank you for sharing that. And I always ask my guests one more
Yeah.
final question. What's a jewel of wisdom that you would like to leave our audience with today?
The jewel of wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We are so powerful. And the world we live in is beautiful. And it's really here for us to embrace the magnificence of it. And when we do that, all life flows through us. And if we look at the deepest fear that we are working to move or to move through, I have found it's the fear of our own power. So it's really just ourselves when it looks like something out here. So my work is really helping people remember that.
Mm, lovely. I love that. What a beautiful jewel of wisdom. Thank you so much, Linda. It's been such a pleasure to host you. So great to have you on the show and really fascinating conversation. I know
Yeah.
I learned a little bit more about Amanita Muscaria. So welcoming her and more intuition and knowledge around her into my life for sure. How can people reach you?
My website is lwsamphire.com and there's a contact button there. And I do have an Amanita store opening up here in about 8 weeks, but right now Amanita is actually legal and I do sell it, and you can reach me that way or any of your curiosities. I am on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. So yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Linda, again, thank you so much for being a guest. I've really appreciated this. Yeah, thanks for reaching out to be on the
Oh,
show.
thank you. This was fun. Yeah, thanks,
Awesome.
Liz.
And thank you everyone for joining us. Again, I'm Liz Peterson and this is Raise the Vibe. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe, everybody. Have a good day. Bye now.